everybody, I'm Jerry, about to check out Jeff Hardy's depressing 2003 release from WWE. This video is about wrestling historian. In 2003, Jeff Hardy left the company after he refused to seek treatment on his substance abuse addiction, and that left him being gone for 3 years. He came back in 2006 for another 3-year run, but he was still struggling with his addiction. 2003 was pretty much a interesting year for Jeff Hardy because the Hardy Boyz actually separated in 2002 after Matt went to SmackDown and Jeff stayed on Raw. Jeff still had some memorable moments in 2002, far as like his ladder match with The Undertaker, his triple threat tag team. No, it was a 6-man tag team tables match at Survivor Series that year, 2003. He had a pretty interesting match as well. And ultimately, ironically, his last match on Raw in 2003 in April was against The Rock, and that was The Rock's last match on Raw in general, period, of that year before they both took some time off. Jeff got released, and The Rock took some time off to do another movie, and he pretty much retired at that time, semi-retired around that time anyway, when he came back in 2004. But Jeff left WWE with TNA, I think, for 2 years. Did some independent stuff as well, and ultimately came back home in 2006. So you're about to hop into this video and check out Jeff Hardy's depressing 2003 release.
I remember it was a pretty big deal, but there were definitely troubling signs. Like once Jeff and I had been split and he was on a different roster, he was traveling with a couple guys, and I just feel like he was starting to develop some bad habits.
In early 2003, Jeff Hardy was one of the WWE's most popular young stars.
He was.
Known for his high-flying daredevil style and the tag team success.
To this day, I still feel like Matt was the better wrestler.
Split,
Jeff just was more popular.
WWE brand extension, with Jeff staying on Raw and Matt heading over to SmackDown, many expected Jeff to break out as a single star.
He was supposed to.
Feuding with The Undertaker in mid-2002, but unfortunately,
he had a little smaller
Jeff Hardy
feud
struggles with addiction,
Shawn Michaels as well.
Back, so much so that he'd eventually be released from the company in early 2003. Well, in today's video, we're going to be doing a deep dive into this strange time.
And at that time, that schedule was so brutal, and his style of wrestling didn't match it.
And head back to 2003, as this was a really weird year for Jeff, with the creative team deciding to turn him heel.
I'm gonna start kicking some ass around this.
And what I mean by that is that they wrestled 5 days out of a week with only 2 days off, and if you were like the world champion, you only had 1 day off, maybe none at all. And the way Jeff wrestled on a nightly basis, constantly taking extreme bumps and going through tables and ladders and everything, especially if it's a ladder match, you gotta endure that pain, the adrenaline. Once that adrenaline wears off after the match, you start to feel that pain. Then you gotta instantly get into a car or fly on a plane to drive to the next city or the next couple cities and do it all over again. Then by the time you get home and settle down, those aches and pains don't just stop. And by the time you decide to have them stop and ease the pain, taking like ice baths, icy hots, or whatever he did to ease the pain, he gotta wrestle the next couple days until he reaches another off day or two. So that schedule right there was brutal. And then a lot of guys develop addiction to pills, and the pills really didn't numb the pain, so they substituted what they added alcohol on top of it. That's why a lot of wrestlers end up passing away at early ages, before the age of 40 or by the age of 40. And it's sad.
This often forgotten heel run was really brief. And honestly, other than a short segment with
he had a little
Shawn
storyline
Michaels,
with Trish
not
Stratus.
much came from it. After this, he turned babyface again, joining Trish Stratus in a shortly
And that was
lived
it.
romance angle in March 2003. But despite the TV time in these storylines, Jeff's personal situation was spiraling downward behind the scenes. Backstage reports at the time indicated that Jeff had grown unmotivated and burnt out from the road. He had even requested his release from the WWE multiple times in the later half of 2002, expressing that he wanted to quit wrestling to focus on music and art.
I do know they started giving him house shows off. They tried to give him more time off, and I feel like that's right when he started like trying to play guitar and doing music, and I feel like he had this big ambition to try and be a rock star at this time, and like maybe it's time to move on from wrestling, whatever. He also felt like he was getting burnt out a little bit, and maybe that was even part of his excuse at the time too, that he was kind of burnt out because like wrestling really did consume us at that time. I mean, the schedule was so hectic. Obviously, everybody has a style. He's maybe not getting enough time to recuperate or let his body completely heal.
WWE officials.
I just said that their schedule was brutal as hell. A lot of guys couldn't handle their schedule mentally. You cannot handle their schedule working 300 plus days out of a year with only a little to no time to rest and recuperate and recover your body. Make sure your body is well rested before you actually take another bump.
Initially refused those release requests for selfish reasons. To be 100% honest, this was probably one of Jeff's lowest points in his career, but he was the most over he had ever been at this time. Jeff was a merchandise seller and a teen idol for young fans, so management tried to accommodate him with a lighter schedule rather than let him quit. Nonetheless, it became pretty obvious by early 2003 that Jeff did not want to be there. Multiple colleagues and officials noted a troubling change in Jeff Hardy's demeanor in these final months, with former WWE writer Bruce Pritchard providing some backstage details in a recent podcast.
All of a sudden we had a different human being on our hands, and it wasn't someone that anyone really liked to work with anymore, because if he did show up, he would go and hide and you couldn't find him all day long, or he'd show up and then he'd leave again. So
it's crazy. Jeff did that same thing in TNA when he came back in TNA in 2010, before he had that little incident in the match with Sting. He did that same exact thing. Eric Bischoff, I remember Eric Bischoff talking about how the Hardys, Matt and Jeff, will hide and have hiding places. You have to find them right before they match will start.
it was difficult times dealing with Jeff Hardy, but Jeff didn't want to go to rehab. So the condition was like, Jeff, you either go to rehab or we've got to let you go. We've got to release you.
Jim Ross, then WWE's head of talent relations, said that he also had several sit-down talks with Jeff Hardy, and that it was clear that his drug issues were starting to impact his professional life.
Can he be trusted? And is he clean and sober? And can he stay clean and sober? Well, we know the answer to that. The answer is no.
These tensions would eventually come to head in the spring of 2003. Dave Meltzer reported in the Wrestling Observer newsletter that Jeff Hardy had failed a drug test in early 2003. In response to the failed test and Hardy's ongoing issues, WWE management delivered a firm condition. Jeff had to go to rehab or he would be released. However, a stubborn Jeff Hardy refused to go.
I think Jim Ross was the one who called me, and it was the first time I was ever offered rehab because I failed the drug test. And I actually think you called me at some point, but that was the first time I denied rehab. And I said, no, I got this, but I was in denial of my issue, my problem.
Jeff Hardy's final match of this WWE run took place on a Monday Night Raw, losing to The Rock, who was also wrestling his last WWE match for a while at the time, just saying. But you can really see in this match that Jeff looks like an absolute mess, and you can tell that he's not in the best place professionally. And thus, on April 22nd, 2003, WWE officially released Jeff Hardy from his contract,
shout out to Jeff,
citing a litany of reasons, including Hardy's erratic behavior, drug use, refusal to go to rehab, awful ring performance, as well as constant tardiness and no-showing events. Following the release, in an audio message to fans a few months later, Jeff confessed that he hadn't been watching WWE television because it crushed his feelings to see the show without being a part of it.
I haven't been watching Raw. It's not because I think it's a bad show or it sucks. It's because the times I've watched, it's crushed my feelings and really heart punched me in the chest.
After the release, Jeff Hardy largely retreated from the wrestling world for a time, though it was very shortly lived. Just days after his release, a message was sent out on behalf of Jeff's new band, Prox Y Gen, with it saying that Jeff was headed to Cincinnati to record an album. The email also stated that Jeff wasn't planning to do independent wrestling dates at all, but this would quickly change. On May 24th, 2003, barely a month after being let go, Jeff actually stepped back into the ring for an independent show in North Carolina. Carolina. This event was for Omega, the Hardy brothers' old home promotion. And just saying, there's
I think
no
the fans
footage.
ended up ripping
We just
him
know that this
because of
happened.
it.
However, though, there is footage of the only other appearance he made in 2003, which was his one Ring of Honor appearance. And dude, this is rough. When I think back to early Jeff Hardy, all I can think about is how over the dude was at the time. Like, Jeff Hardy was a really popular wrestler, even overshadowing his brother Matt. I mean, when they were split up and Matt went over to SmackDown and Jeff was on Raw, V1 version 1 Matt Hardy sometimes would get chants where people would be like, "We want Jeff."
This crowd here is chanting for Matt's brother, Jeff.
But once Jeff got released, the entire wrestling community switched up on the dude, with him actually getting notoriously booed at this Ring of Honor event. Jeff did not get a very warm welcome at Ring of Honor's Death Before Dishonor event on July 19th, 2003. As the moment the dude stepped out, the Ring of Honor audience ate his ass up, and they even chanted that they wanted Matt, which is absolutely crazy to hear. Like, who would have thought you'd ever hear fans booing Jeff and chanting that they want Matt Hardy? Despite the hostile atmosphere, Hardy won the triple threat match. But even in victory, he was met with more overwhelming boos.
Defeat.
It was honestly an embarrassing scene for a performer who just a year or two earlier had been one of the most cheered
He was on
young
top of the
stars
world,
in
man.
WWE. Matt Hardy later revealed on his podcast that Jeff was deeply shaken and upset by how the Ring of Honor fans treated him. In fact, Jeff immediately told his brother that he had no desire to ever work in the company again, even giving the promotion a funny little nickname.
That was a very famous night where he first debuted Willow there on ROH, came out in that, and I remember Jeff never wanted to go back to ROH after that. I remember for the longest time he called it Ring of Horror, and he was so upset about the reaction he got there.
I mean, it's pretty telling that the Hardys didn't even return to Ring of Honor as a team until 13 years later in 2016. So that's just how negative his 2003 solo experience was.
It's
I can't really
crazy.
blame him. But yeah, from here, it was time for a break, with Jeff refusing all bookings until the summer of 2004. He'd finally get that time off that he wanted, and he'd reveal many times in future interviews
started
that
paying-
this was something
started
he needed to get his passion for
riding
wrestling
dirt
back.
bikes.
Jeff's next major move came with Total
TNA.
Nonstop Action, also known as TNA, of course, the hot new upstart promotion founded in mid-2002. By 2004, TNA had a national pay-per-view presence and was eager to sign any notable ex-WWE names. Jeff Hardy was arguably one of the hottest free agents they could get at the time, and behind the scenes, it turned out that Matt Hardy actually helped facilitate this move.
I actually expedited a lot of him going to TNA. I had conversations with Jeff Jarrett about having Jeff go there because I thought just him having some constructive work to do would make sure he kind of stays a little more straight or continues to clean up his life or move in the right direction. So I wanted him busy. I didn't want him just sitting at home.
That's
with
that
nothing
big
to
brother
do.
energy.
I feel like that's when a lot of people get worse. I wanted him to have some responsibility, something to do. So I definitely spoke with Jeff Jarrett a lot, and then obviously, with Jeff as well. I kind of helped set all that things, set that up. His coming to TNA in 2004, is that when it was?
By mid-2004, the path was clear, and Jeff Hardy made his TNA debut with considerable fanfare. Over the next few months in TNA, Hardy quickly ascended into the main event picture, even getting a title shot at one point. However, even as Jeff made the most of these opportunities, old problems resurfaced. By 2005, Jeff Hardy's pattern of unreliability unfortunately crept back into the picture, and the most glaring incident occurred in May 2005 at TNA's Hard Justice pay-per-view. The day of the show, Jeff Hardy no-showed the event, leaving TNA in a pretty tough spot.
I am so disgusted that Jeff Hardy didn't have the cojones to show up in a match, Howard.
Raven.
The man is disgusting.
Raven has some of the
Now,
same similar
whether it was truly a
issues.
missed flight or something more serious and self-inflicted, TNA suspended Jeff Hardy after this incident.
I mean, there were times where he was really good, but I was always concerned and I was always worried about him. And I remember there was one point when he'd missed some of those flights, and I was getting called. A guy who works for WWE from TNA, like, "Hey, where's your brother at? Where's your brother at?" From several people in management or whatever. And then I would try to do what I could, to locate him and whatnot.
He was quietly welcomed back in August 2005, but just when it seemed Hardy had stabilized, another mishap struck. In December 2005, TNA advertised Hardy for a match on the pre-show of Turning Point, but once again, Jeff Hardy no-showed on the day of the event, so TNA suspended him indefinitely, later releasing him from his contract in June 2006. And this is where Jeff's road back to the WWE would finally begin. By mid-2006,
and I remember the advertisements.
Over 3 years had passed since Jeff Hardy's dramatic WWE exit, and as fate would have it, WWE was willing to give Jeff another chance.
I'll never forget, he came to a Roanoke SmackDown ECW taping, which I was working on SmackDown at that time, and came backstage and met with a lot of the higher-ups and met with Vince, and we just kind of all sat down to see if we could work something out, and they ended up doing some testings and measures on Jeff, and he ended up passing with flying colors, and everything seemed to be good, and lo and behold, a few weeks later he ended up resigning.
After 3 years away, Hardy came back to Raw on August 21st, 2006, immediately stepping into a spotlight moment by interrupting WWE Champion Edge.
Didn't he get suspended in 06 or was it 07? He had a pretty good 06. Before, like, behind the scenes, I think he got suspended again. It was either 06 or 07.
This, he'd enter an iconic feud with Johnny Nitro, eventually capturing the IC Championship multiple times. After years of struggle, Jeff was finally in a much better headspace in 2006. And just to be clear, Jeff had gotten clean before the re-signing.
I went to Roanoke, Virginia to go see Vince and Johnny and just, talk to them and, just get a feel for how they felt about me and a possible return. One of the first questions that came out of, Johnny's mouth, are you clean? How long have you been clean? And I was open and honest with him. I told him how long. Yes, I am clean.
Jeff actually kind of opened up and admitted that, he always had dreams of being a rock and roll star. Music has always captured his imagination. But during the moment when he was sitting there talking, he looked me dead in the eyes and he says, but you know what? He said, God put me on earth and gave me the talent to wrestle.
He would fall off the bandwagon a few more times throughout his career, but the dude was in a much better place and was finally back home. He'd even win the tag team titles with his brother again in 2007. And he'd eventually capture the WWE Championship by 2008.
World Heavyweight Championship in 09.
Look at Jeff's 2006 to 2010 WWE run in a future video, covering everything
he was
from
gone in
Johnny
2010
Nitro up to his iconic feud with CM Punk. So make sure to subscribe for that.
That feud with Punk is it's still one of my favorite feuds to this day, man. It just was the clash of straight edge versus whatever Jeff did of just going with the flow. Both of them had similar styles in a way, and it just meshed together during the summer of 2009. I love that feud. I actually lived through that feud. I was like 13 when it happened. Then I remember when Jeff left, he lost the Loser Leaves SmackDown match, Loser Leaves WWE match on SmackDown in a steel cage, and ultimately he just decided to let his contract expire. Then he signed with TNA, and like January 4th of 2010, when TNA was trying to go head to head against WWE and live Monday night, trying to recreate the Monday Night Wars going live every week. It just was incredible, man.
But for now, hopefully this video answered the same questions I had.
But I do wish Jeff would retire.
As a kid, back in the day, I was a massive Hardy Boyz fan. I was actually a really big Hardy fan, but I always wondered why Jeff Hardy just disappeared after 2003. But yeah, my guy was just flying a little too high, if you know what I'm saying. But that's gonna do it for today's video, and real quickly, I just want to say thank you so much for all of the support, guys. I didn't upload for like 2 weeks, but the channel's still pumping, and I'm very thankful. But
shout out to you guys,
next
historian,
time.
man.
I love ya. Please subscribe. I use no AI, and yeah, peace.